And that, Sarah, when we get ready
Are we streaming? Okay. The Noble County Planning Commission special meeting is now called to order. And Sarah, would you call the roll, please?
Randy Sexton.
Here.
George Bennett.
Here.
Ann Klein. Glenn Lemon. Anita Hess.
Yes, here.
Tom Griffiths.
Here.
Patty Gatman.
Here.
Don Lighty.
Here.
Jeff Cunningham.
Here.
And I'll note that Mary Weissong is here from County Council observing tonight.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Actually, all of the voting members are present tonight with the exception of Glenn Lemon.
So I think it's just going to be late.
Okay, so he will be arriving. And as Sarah mentioned, we welcome Mary Weissong, seated here on the end, potentially in harm's way. But I'd like to welcome Mary as an observer from the county council. She won't be participating in the discussion or the voting, but she is here on behalf of the county council. So we welcome her. I'd welcome each of the members of the public that are here tonight. We posted our agenda, and you can see everything's listed under new business on the first page of our agenda. To attempt to explain how we want to approach this tonight, we've got 5 categories. Those represent the categories that were referred to us by the county commissioners. At our meeting last month, we spoke and addressed those. We took votes as to what we wanted to actually hear at the public hearing, and there was a motion on 4 of those 5, a 6-0 motion not to consider any changes. There was a 4-2 vote on the first item not to consider changes that the commissioners had recommended. That lacked a quorum vote or a majority vote by 1. What I envision we're going to do is those 5 items are going to be included among the broad category that the public can speak to. As we hear public comment, we will be taking a vote collectively on those 5, making a recommendation to the commissioners. And then on the second page of our agenda are additional items that we voted last month to actually hold a public hearing on changes. And I would note that the first item there is correlated to the first item on the first page that we didn't make a recommendation to consider, but that was a new motion to consider leaving the setbacks as they were, but to add a new category to the setbacks. That specifically being that on parcels of 3 acres or less, there would be a minimum of 350-foot setback from any existing dwelling, or 50 foot from the property line, whichever is the greater of the 2. So I do want to make sure everybody understands that that represents an outgrowth from the commissioner's recommended change in the setbacks that we voted not to consider making a change on. Then our second category is 3 items pertaining to home-based business. And then the third category that we voted to hold a public hearing on has to do with changes in certain definitions. So what I'm gonna do, once we begin hearing from the public, is first to hear from any public on the home-based business changes that we proposed. And then we will hear on the subject of solar, realizing that, at least anticipating that that's what the most interest is here tonight about. So just for the sake of clarification, that's how we're gonna approach that tonight. So with that said, I guess I would also just offer a couple of housekeeping items. As we've said at previous meetings, The space we're using here, we realize is not ideal. We look forward to the day that we have our meeting room back downstairs. That will probably occur next spring. But in the meantime, we're trying to make the best out of the space we've got. As a result, we've been streaming our meetings, and there is seating downstairs, which I suspect is occupied by some people. But it is important to bear in mind that the county's 911 dispatch is on the other side of this wall. So it is going to be imperative that we try to hold our noise level down. And I think we've done adequately well with that. As we move through the meeting, if people have occasion to leave, you're certainly welcome to do that. You don't have to stay as long as we do, nor do you have to put the tables and chairs away afterwards. But as you leave, please do so quietly. And if you want to have conversation, please have that outside the building so that the people downstairs can hear what's taking place. As to Plan Commission members, as we hear from the public as much as possible, let's try to hold any discussion or questions we've got until we've heard from all of the public comment. So I think that'll allow the commenters to not be distracted. In addition, I think it'll make the most efficient use of the time. So if there is discussion or questions prompted by comments of the public, try to hold those until after we've heard from everyone. And I suspect those commenting will probably still be present if a question needs to be addressed back to someone in particular. With that housekeeping address, Teresa, do you have things you want to add to that?
No, I think you did well. I guess, as far as the chatter goes, I know sometimes we visit a little bit back here, we might be making comments, but what you may not pay attention or realize is that someone that may not be able to hear as well, it makes it even harder for them to hear. So we're just asking, not just for us to have that respect, but more so for the people in the audience to be able to hear what's actually happening as well. I think that just helps everybody as a whole. We do have 911 right here. They may walk through our meeting at some point. That's your only way out. We don't want to block any access ways, so come off of any aisles that are around us. You'll need to move in so that emergency reasons why we need to keep these aisleways open as best as possible.
Okay. Okay, that said, as I've outlined things, is there initial discussion or questions among the Plan Commission members as to how we're dealing with these items? Any follow-up from last month's meeting? Or is everybody clear on what we're doing? I think Teresa's probably got our sign-up list.
The first one, I'll go downstairs and get the other.
Okay. Thank you. Got 11 signed up there that we should see.
There is nobody on the sign-in sheet downstairs, so I assume they're not wanting to talk.
Okay, so it looks like we've got 11 persons that have registered to speak. How about if we set our time at 3 minutes apiece? You got your timer? So if there's no objection from any Plan Commission members, we'll expand the normal time period. And we'll propose to use a 3-minute comment period. I guess my response was gonna tend to be that it doesn't necessarily matter, not to me, unless it does to anybody else. I think we've got some represented from those who might be in favor and some from those who are opposed. And intend to do, so we will set our timer for 3 minutes.
We are doing home-based business first, correct?
Yes. Is there any, everyone has identified on here as their area of interest being solar. So is there anyone that wished to speak that I'm misunderstanding their interest of, their area of interest to pertain to the home-based business? It looks like we've understood that correctly. So we have no public comment on what appears on page 2 of the agenda under small case, lowercase b, home-based business. Is there discussion from Plan Commission members? We've got 3 articles that we are proposing a recommendation on.
I got, Article 5 over here, Article 2 here, that pertains to home-based business type 2. Main changes in there are gonna be owner occupied in the primary dwelling with no outside employees. And then we did decide that Lake Residential would need a minimum of 2 acres, or 1 acre, excuse me, on that one. If you don't mind, I'm gonna pop over to the next one, cause I did add a little bit here, and the screen is cutting this off, I don't know why. We're removing light manufacturing out of home-based business type 3. Thank you, we're limiting the accessory structure to 600 feet, where we had no size prior, or 600 square feet. It does have to be owner occupied with no outside employees. The exterior storage, except for that listed in section A, which is on your agenda. All exterior storage shall be prohibited with limited storage. I added limited storage for landscaping, obviously. It's obvious that a landscaping business is going to need some. Now granted, vehicles, trailers, other equipment used in the home-based business shall be stored and parked in an organized manner that's in an inconspicuous location. Obviously, a landscaping business may have trees out there or a few things like that. So I think in that, we could probably tweak that a tiny bit with the exception of limited outside storage for home-based business. I think we should discuss and maybe consider having that there rather than dumping that all on your staff.
I don't see a section A, Teresa.
It is on the screen here, right at number 4A, where it's highlighted, the lower 2 highlights where it says exterior storage. A is vehicles, trailers, and other equipment that's used. It could be a little vague. I think we maybe could acknowledge that landscaping obviously is gonna have more than vehicles. They're probably gonna have some trees and some shrubs and maybe some mulch.
I don't mind the way it's written. It's an organized manner, inconspicuous.
So we don't really necessarily need it, you think, for landscaping? I think that was a concern that came up at the last meeting, so I wanted to make sure we at least covered that. I will say A1 zoning does allow for landscaping, so we have never seen anybody for a home-based business get landscaping. There you go. Just leave it. Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
So leave it the way that it's written in your agenda.
Okay, any questions on any of the items there? And again, letting the record show that there was no public comment on this home-based business section. I think what we would then be ready for would be a motion to move forward to polling the members as to favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation. Is there a motion to proceed on this section under B, home-based business?
Motion to proceed.
So,
From Tom, second by Ann. So all in favor of the motion to proceed to the polling, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, whenever you're ready, you can poll each individual member as to their recommendation. And again, the answers we would be giving here would be favorable or unfavorable or no recommendation.
Okay, Jeff Cunningham,
Favorable.
Randy Sexton,
Favorable.
Ann Klein,
Favorable.
Anita Hess,
Favorable.
Glenn's not here yet. Don Lighty,
Favorable.
Patty Gatman,
Favorable.
Tom Griffiths,
Favorable.
George Bennett.
Favorable. Okay. So we have a favorable recommendation on these changes under the category of home-based business. Now we'll move to public comment on the remainder. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this public comment can pertain to the 5 items on the first page or to the items under B, A and B on the second page, or category C. So anything other than the home-based business, and we will allow 3 minutes for the public comments. So the first person I call up that's first on the list is Deb Ohl. So Deb, if you're here and would please come forward. And if you would kindly state your name for our record.
Oh, Deb Ohl, and I also am speaking for Ann Varner too, long resident in Noble County.
Okay, go right ahead.
We support the county commissioner's 750 setback from the property line recommendations. Cash escrow only, $2 million separate liability policy landowner, operation and maintenance re-examined timeframe every 3 years. Responsibility, replace the word owner to landowner, and ultimate financial responsibility. And then this up. To our elected and appointed county officials, we understand what a long and tough road this has been and appreciate your hard work. As your constituents, we applaud you, but know the job isn't finished yet. Your job is not to decide what you think is best. Your job is to represent the wishes and interests of the majority of our citizens. So it's your duty to find out what that is. I think the majority of our county really doesn't even know what is at stake here even yet. And many that do feel, rightly or wrongly so, that we are being minimalized at best and possibly ignored at worst. Some even feel there is some sort of crazy conspiracy and you clearly don't want any of those opinions from your voters. This is a really big decision and potential shift for the landscape and direction of our county and the terrifying prospect of thousands of acres of fertile Noble County land being controlled by other countries. A few public notices buried in the not very well subscribed newspaper is clearly not sufficient to educate, inform, and extract the opinions of the majority of our tax-paying citizens. We propose that you press pause for a year. I know this has been said before. Compile a committee of educated parties to hold town hall meetings to be transparent on both sides of the issue, and with the majority of residents educated, find out what your constituents really want for Noble County's agricultural legacy. While I'm sure many of us are going to have already commented on the issues, I've already mentioned them, the setbacks, the effective wildlife corridors, what exactly is effective. Of course, the escrow accounts, recycling these panels at the end of their use, this is key. Recycling, not merely disposing or decommissioning. Landowner, which I did mention here briefly, ultimate responsibility. We are ultimately all responsible for our own property, no matter who we let lease and control. Ultimately, the most alarming detail in our county, allowing large commercial solar fields, robbing us of precious legacy food-producing lands, is these former farmers, current landowners, are being courted by foreign-owned companies offering up to 5 times the going rate for incredibly restrictive leases, for 20 to 40 years. This should concern all of us, for not only the surrounding farmers who will struggle to cash rent land, but also for the handful of landowners quick to be fooled by offers of big money, yet who knows what the going rate for their land will be in 20 to 40 years. Alarming too is why they can offer such high per acre pricing. Foreign countries are quick to grab the incredibly high incentives that our U.S. government is handing out for their Green Deal. Why would Noble County, Indiana want to give away U.S. tax dollars to foreign entities and make a profit on it at our expense?
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
I'm finished, but thank you.
The next person signed up to comment is Rose Ricky. Rose, you come forward, please. And please state your name for our record, Rose.
Hi, Rose Ricky.
Thank you. You may begin.
On several occasions, the Planning Commission asked the county commissioners for specific recommendations and guidance and direction concerning the solar UDO. Last month, the county commissioners sent 5 recommendations that were specific and to the Planning Commission. Every one of these recommendations is worthy of approval. Therefore, for your setbacks, I totally agree with the commissioners, the county commissioners, that a 750 setback from the property line needs to be approved. For surety, cash escrow only needs to be approved. For liability insurance, the landowner needs to be able to have separate liability insurance of at least $2 million. I think that needs to be approved. As far as the surety updates, changing it from 5 years to every 3 years is respectable and reasonable. And lastly, the responsibility ultimately is the landowner, and it needs to be stated in the UDO as such, whether that is in the definition part of the UDO or throughout the UDO itself. I understand the need for more energy in Noble County. Ron Rapel wrote an article in the REMC magazine just this month that Noble County really needs to have reliable energy. I'm telling you, solar is not reliable energy. We've got coal mines down in southern Indiana that are producing coal and selling it to China. That's reliable energy. China is opening 1 coal mine every day in their country. That's reliable energy. Solar is not reliable energy. I encourage every member in this Plan Commission to thoughtfully consider what our members of Noble County really are asking you to do, and not because of your own special interest. I implore you to approve each of these recommendations. They were given to you in good faith from our county commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. The next person on the list to speak is J.P. Hayes. Doc, if you would come on down.
Good evening. I'm J.P. Hayes, former dentist, now retired. And I thank you for allowing me to speak. Do I speak on all of the issues that I want to talk about in my 3 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. First, I'm opposed to increasing the size of the setbacks. They were very carefully considered. They are within and beyond the state's recommendations. If I were the landowner, I would object greatly to having 3 times as much of my land taken up by a setback when that proves nothing valuable to be done. Second part is the cash escrow for decommissioning. And I would respond to that in that my son is the chief operating officer for Carolina Solar Services. They care for and maintain solar fields. That is their job. They have informed me that recyclable materials in solar fields are the routine, and that about 96 to 99% of the materials are recycled. I don't think it needs to be, I don't think it needs to be a situation where you have to have cash up front to cover that. You don't do that with other businesses. So, you know, I'm firmly for having protection. I also would address that coal mines in southern Indiana are spewing things into the air that my grandchildren will have to be breathing. And one of the things that the solar ordinance does is allow us to generate electricity without creating further negative impact on our environment, our atmosphere. As far as requiring additional insurance, I'm not sure why that would be necessary. I would assume that the company that you're dealing with, which is a national corporation, would have the ability to assure you that you would be stabilized against loss for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up to speak is Gary Gavin. Gary?
Thank you all. My name is Gary Gavin, and I think I've spoken in front of you before in a different capacity. Today, I'm not here in an official capacity. I'm here as just an individual who loves the county that he lives in, loves the town that he lives in, and loves the people that are here. And I watched as in a former capacity, I watched for 18 months as this board did really a very thoughtful and deliberate job of sorting through the ordinance. Multiple opportunities for people to weigh in, multiple opportunities for people to oppose or speak in favor of. I saw you change things when you recognized legitimate concerns, and there certainly were some, and I commend you for the changes that you've made. But I'm here to basically suggest I support the work you did. I thought you did a heck of a job, and not sure that I understand completely why we need to open it back up and start this process all over. You probably know me well enough to know that, you know, my primary, one of the things I look at is the impact that this is gonna have on every resident, not just the landowners, but every resident of this county. And whether you look at Purdue's research that projects $880 million of activity from 9 projects, you look at Baker Tilly's research that projected $75 million for a project similar to ours, or local analysis of 70 million. What it really means to me in Mobile County as a resident, and I know a lot of other people who feel very strongly about this, it means the opportunity to lower our taxes. It means the opportunity to make investments in infrastructure like broadband and sewers and other things that improve the quality of life for everybody here. There's a big opportunity to support small business during the construction phase, whether it's restaurants or service industries that are going to see big, and we're going to create some jobs. And I know long-term solar itself doesn't create large numbers of jobs, but it will have an indirect, that money, that $8 million a year just circulates back through the economy over and over and over. And a lot of young people are going to have opportunities to take work opportunities here in this county. I think that's great. So I've been a lifelong conservative. I'm not a real political guy in the traditional sense, but I'm very conservative. I've been a Republican my whole life. I believe in economic growth. I believe in lower taxes. I believe in supporting small businesses and young people going to work. And I just believe, I believe that Bill hasn't changed much. I believe that these things are fundamental to a conservative person like me. Lowering taxes, creating jobs for young people, supporting small business, and making investments in infrastructure. So I'm here to advocate for leaving the ordinance as is, not expanding the setbacks, not adding the additional what I view as burdensome requirements. I believe you did a really good job over the 18 months that you took input and made changes, and I'm here to support that today. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Yep.
Next speaker is Suzanne Henshaw. Suzanne?
opportunity to share my thoughts. And I want to echo Gary's sentiment. Thank you for all the hard work and the due diligence that this commission put together to make that good decision with a good ordinance. And I do not support the changes that are being recommended. First, the 700-foot setback. I think the ordinance that you originally came up with seemed to be fitting, and especially for neighboring properties. And the second one, really, I hone in on the $1 million cash. We don't ask any industry whatsoever to put down any type of cash surety bonds or any, they do bonds while they're constructing, and we never would ask an industry to put $1 million aside for a project for the what if. We just don't do that. And so this is a business, in my opinion. This is a business proposition, and it is to the property owner, and I just totally disagree with that. I also wanted to say a couple more things. The city of Kendallville, as you may know, does have a solar field. We turned a brown field into a green field, solar, and it provides 90% of the energy that's required for our wastewater treatment plant. We were paying in excess of $27,000 a month, and now for a utility bill, and now they're paying less than $5,000. So it has really paid dividends for the city to go ahead with that. And even during, we took a big hit during the hailstorm on several panels, and even during that time frame, they still were getting 80% of their energy from it, and they've already been replaced and taken care of. And that was our responsibility as a city to hold the insurance on those. Some of you in the room, and especially behind me, had the opportunity when the gubernatorial candidate, Senator Braun, came to Kendallville, and the question was asked of him, what did he think of solar? And he said a few things, and I may misspeak a little bit here, but a few things that he said that I honed in on. One was he said, we are being mandated by the federal government to reduce our reliance on coal. And Indiana is strictly a coal user for our electricity. And he said it has to stop, we have to cut it back, so we have to find alternatives for the renewable energy. And it is true, we are selling our coal to China because they don't care about the environment or energy. So if people would really look at the bottom of their I&M bill, we are paying a surcharge already for the use of coal. We don't have an option. So he mentioned that, and he also mentioned that he believes in hometown rule, because people were asking in the audience when it's possible for the
Susan. Go ahead, finish your thought.
He did believe in individual property rights, and I do as well. I think we all get frustrated with what we see with government overreach, and by going from what you have proposed to increasing it to 700, to me, is government overreach. It is the individual property owner's right to do what they choose to do with their property. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Next speaker is Andrew Lemon.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Lemon. I have 25 acres right in the middle of the proposed solar project, but I've chosen to opt out. However, over the course of the last 2+ years, I've had the opportunity to attend many meetings, both pro-solar, anti-solar, as well as the Plan Commission and commissioners meetings. And I've become a pretty strong advocate for the solar program, for the solar project. I'm here specifically to talk about the setbacks. And I think that for the most part, whether it was, I mentioned this to Commissioner Hess last week, but I don't think it matters whether it's 50 feet of setback or 1,050 feet. I think it's really a matter of those that would like to have an economic benefit from their assets and those that don't want to see solar come into our county at all. I'm a strong advocate for maintaining at a minimum the ordinance as you have it in place at 300 feet from a foundation. This is 50 feet from a tree line, which is similar to a screen that I believe that our UDO specifies, and this is 300 feet. Really, from this vantage point, there's really no difference. The only reason to increase the setback is to nix the project as a whole, and I think that's bad from an economic standpoint for our county and for every resident. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
That's
you.
gonna need to be submitted to the record.
Is it okay if I just set it over here on the wall?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Our next speaker, Trina Rodebush.
Hi, I'm Trina Rodebush. I'm with GeneX Solar. We are a US-based greenfield solar developer. We are working on a project in the county. I think we have all met before. Why is solar in Noble County? It's here because of three key reasons. One, there's capacity on the grid to inject new energy. Second, we have willing landowners that are interested in leasing portions of their property to help diversify their income, to preserve the land in their families for future generations, or other reasons that are just personal to those families. And thirdly, there's demand for low-cost, American-made energy in this part of the state, in this part of the country. As you've heard before, this is a catalyst for economic development, not only the large amount of taxes that will infuse into the county, but other business opportunities that may be looking at Noble County to invest in. We are not looking to replace coal. We're looking to diversify the energy mix, which adds stability and reliability to the grid that we all depend on for our daily lives. I do commend you for considering agricultural fencing, wildlife corridors in your requirements. As you're taking the vote on the package as a whole, I ask you to leave the ordinance in place as it is, but please do look for our project to incorporate the feedback, including wildlife corridors and ag fencing. I do deeply respect the neighbors that will be neighbors to our project. You will see in our application that we are devising robust vegetative screening and incorporating other best practices so that we can mitigate that visual impact. The panels themselves, you have a height requirement in your ordinance that helps, again, minimize that visual impact. The panels do essentially blend in with the horizon. We're thinking 300 feet from a dwelling currently, behind screening, and no more than 12 feet in height. As a business, we are investing in Noble County. We've been working here for several years with landowners, with community stakeholders. We do see ourselves as part of the business community for the next 40 plus years. And we hope that we can make you proud of the work that we're doing. But in order to do that, we need reliable, consistent guidance through this ordinance so that we can develop our plan and bring that in front of you for the scrutiny that it deserves. So I'll again ask you to leave the ordinance as is and let us bring forward a quality project. Thank you. Oh, I also have letters of support. There's quite a few. I think you've received most of them. There are some new ones in here, so I'll leave that for you. And then a copy of the letter that we previously submitted to the Plan Commission and the Commissioners. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Trina. Next speaker is Timothy Gaby.
My name is Timothy Gaby. My family's been established a farm clear back in 1844. I want to thank everybody for being here and giving us the opportunity to speak our mind on the major projects that are going on in the county and stuff. So I think everybody appreciates that. But since 1844, there's been a lot of changes happen over the years. When my great grandfather Timothy started farming here, and I'm sure they've had meetings with the commissioners and things of that sort over the years. So I feel I'm just doing my part for my generation to make sure this kind of things happen. But I guess one of the main things I wanna talk about is the wildlife corridors, because I got 30 acres, my dad and I, we got 30 acres of woods, we make maple syrup, and there's a lot of wildlife back there, we try to be pro-wildlife as much as we can and can afford it. Some of that isn't, some of that's a little expensive. But anyways, I also have a wildlife pond that's gonna be right in the middle of a solar area, a 26 acre field, and there's another 37 acres on the other side of it. And we're gonna have a wildlife corridor from Road 600, I own a little bit of woods right on the edge of 600, so the wildlife can get from one woods over to the wildlife pond, and then clear over to, and then go through my property, and the wildlife like deer, raccoons, wolves, or whatever can get from one woods all the way over to the other west woods, which is 30 acres, 28 point something. And they're working with me and I've already got it for sure that there's one corridor, and we're gonna make sure that the other corridor is there. And the fencing that they have is fencing that's gonna be able for the wildlife to get through. And I'm not too sure if it's a 12-foot high fence, a deer's gonna be able to jump that or not, but the little ones won't for sure, but they're gonna make it so there will be wildlife corridors in through there and everything, so that's important to me. I'd like to see the wildlife. I go back to the turtle pond, a little wildlife pond back there once in a while, and like just last, I don't know, sometime in June, I went back there, had a little family of ducks swimming around out there. They, go back there and watch them for a little bit. And they're working with all the people, all the other farmers to make sure there are wildlife corridors. And they're pro that for sure. Then on some other things here, the 750 setback is way too much. My opinion is, I'm sure it'll make some people displeased, my opinion is they're just trying to make it so it's gonna be too expensive for anything to happen here. That's just my opinion. But the 750 is way too much. I think you got it at the 350, maybe with the 350 or 300, and maybe with the 350 for the people that only have 3 acres or less, trying to make it work a little better for them. So that went too fast. I had more things I wanted to talk about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Rebecca Schroeder.
Good evening, I'm Rebecca Schroeder. I would also like to thank you for the work that you've put in over the last many months and years. I am in favorable of the reasonable ordinance you have developed over that time. I'm in favor of maximizing the economic development in the unincorporated areas of Noble County. I'm for the diversification of the ag economy, which the solar projects will do. It won't eliminate ag land. Solar and agriculture can exist together. I am for the preservation of agricultural land, and I also believe that these projects will do that as well. They'll allow families to keep big chunks of land, larger chunks of land, farms in farm families. I am not in favor of the cash surety option. I believe that going that option and only giving a cash option ties the hands of the leaders of this county from coming up with the very best project and deal for Noble County. I think we should leave the options open to those evaluating the specific projects. If there are projects put forward that you don't have trust in, that may be the time to ask for the cash only option. But I think overall, we need options left open for the development of economics in Noble County. And I'm also in favor of protecting property rights. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. Our next speaker is Bill Schultz. Bill.
Bill Schultz, coming from a different little angle here. So by the way, nuclear is the way to go, the cheapest, most effective coal is not dirty anymore. You're doing an ordinance here, we need a good, fair ordinance for everybody. You heard from basically two families that are for this county, the solar deal. And the rest of us are all separate families, representing a lot of different, parts of the county. I wanna talk about the meeting here. I think letting us talk is okay, but we really need to talk later when you guys talk. We need to be involved in the conversation. You're gonna go down a different path, it's gonna be different. Last meeting, you came up with these rules here. You had three people doing the talking. Anita brought all these things up, it was from the commissioners. Your agenda here, Randy Sexton.
He has 2 more minutes.
I don't think I reset it, that's my bad.
Randy Sexton made a motion, Tom Griffiths seconded it. The next item up, I think, Randy Sexton made that motion again, Tom Griffiths seconded it. And another one, Randy Sexton and Jeff Cunningham seconded that motion. I think we had a lot of intimidation that last meeting, that we have 9 board members here that can vote. And things got a little boisterous from those few people. And I think people that wanted to hold their hand up for some things didn't get to do that. And they were a little hush when they could have talked. So why did we have that? Why did we have that? So, Tom, are you involved with GeneX or any solar company with what you're doing now?
No, I'm not.
Have you been paid by anyone?
Well, this is not.
Bill.
Huh?
Everett, would you care to guide us on this process? If a challenge
The purpose
is
of
being
this
made.
is to talk to the things that are in the ordinance and to decide, and to make arguments for and against the proposed changes to the ordinance. It's not relevant, the questions are being asked, in fact, we are not to be asked questions.
Well, Commissioner's gonna say we can talk about it a little bit tonight.
You can talk about it, you can say whatever you want to say that's legal, not.
Help me out.
But you can't, be questioned.
I have a contract in my hand from Tom Griffiths. And I think I also have an indirect contract here from Jeff Cunningham, he's involved, to, in the future, could be directly benefiting from the solar company. I don't have all the facts yet, no, but I do have contracts. I have an initial letter of intent letter that says you could have got money, could have, should you two be on this board making those decisions. And I think you have an opportunity to recuse yourself, and I think we would get, you still have 8 more votes, you could still vote and pass all this, but I think you had a lot of intimidation there.
Bill, we'll need you to leave copies of the items that you alluded to. So if you have comments.
And I need to get you better copies.
Okay.
The only thing I'll say on that is, I think everybody got a memorandum on conflicts of interest and how it works. If anybody has such a conflict of interest, they have to bring that before the planning commission. If they don't, we don't have a separate enforcement mechanism, for that type of thing. Well, I think, well, the thing is the way it's written now, if you have conflict of interest, you tell the board, the plan commission. That's it, there is no other procedure. And you have to have a direct financial or indirect financial interest, that is the only criteria for this type of proceeding. If you're doing like a subdivision, there's other categories. But for this type of proceeding, this has to do direct or indirect financial interest in a property that's subject to the zoning ordinance. Now, we bring in more complicated issues, that doesn't mean farmers can't vote on zoning ordinances that affect farming. people who are involved with solar are not prohibited from voting on ordinances that involve solar. Well, hence, it must be the direct financial interest. Something like the contract says, if you vote for this, you get $100, that makes it easy. But it gets a little bit tougher. If you had a zoning ordinance that only pertained to a particular piece of land, and it happens to be yours, well, you got a direct financial interest. But to have a vote involved generally supporting the industry or not supporting the industry, actually, we're not even talking about that now. That has already been decided. One thing we're talking about now is, does he have a direct financial interest, whoever is on the board, it doesn't have to be one particular person, in the changes that are involved? In other words, does the changes that are proposed affect somebody's direct or indirect financial interest? And indirect financial interest is pretty much defined as, I got a brother or a sister, you know, something very close. They're not saying that it might have an indirect effect on you, but there's somebody closely connected with you who would be affected by it. I don't know if that answers everybody's question. The only questions I care about are from the planning.
I think what you're saying is, on this matter that we're voting on a recommendation on, do any of the members that would be voting tonight have a direct financial interest in the vote they're going to cast tonight?
That's correct. And for example, you've got changes in setbacks that could affect a property. Could be your property, then it would definitely be something worthy of consideration. But it's not, otherwise nobody gets to vote on zoning ordinance. I mean, because you get something that's a broad enough project, the whole zoning ordinance. We specifically put people on the plan commission that have different interests, so that they can participate in the land use development in a responsible way. And it is not a majority decision, it's a land use decision. Basically trying to decide, everybody has infinite rights in their property until those infinite rights conflict with your neighbor's rights. Then you gotta decide how those infinite rights are going to be divided up. And zoning is one of the ways that they do that. You know, your rights end where your fist hits my nose. Well, we try to decide the distance between the fist and the nose. Pretty simplistic description, but that's really what we do. And we have much more limited scope than people ultimately vote on.
My understanding was that's not a big issue until there is a project on the table that you're voting.
Well, the project's an easy one. I mean, if you got a project and you're involved in it,
then that's what you got.
But it is possible that, let's say you had somebody who permitted coal mining, and you were the only only person involved with coal in the county. Well, you ought not to be voting on that.
Okay, I see your point.
So, and somewhere between those two extremes, you know, there's the gray area where courts make up their minds. And very few decisions on this. I've looked through it, and it's only come up on rare occasions where a court has said you have too much conflict of interest and you can't vote. Probably that's because in part, plan commissions have people who voluntarily, in fact, the biggest problem with plan commissions is getting people to stay to vote, you know, make up conflict of interest so they're not receiving end of crowd noise, I'll put it that way. So it's not encouraged that people excuse themselves, but they are required to bring it forward. And if they don't follow that requirement, although we don't have the power to exclude somebody or keep somebody from voting, there are ways that that can be dealt with.
Planning Commission, anyone have any further questions for Eric? And I'm not aware or any of the voting members here declaring that they have a direct or indirect financial interest in the outcome of what's being voted on tonight. Here's not. Okay. Next person lined up to speak, Linda Gray.
My name is Linda
Gray, I live in Noble County, Indiana, USA. I do not live in China, I do not live in Portugal, I don't live in France. I would like to keep Noble County as Noble County, Indiana. So my first question to you is, does anybody know of anybody that's making more land? Our land is being used up. I think the 750-foot setbacks is a good idea. It would let farmers farm around that. And I've heard from Gen X that if that was the case, they would have to look for more farmers. If that's the case, so be it. More farmers could get into this great, wonderful project that they think they're gonna be building in Noble County. And as far as McCray solar fields, I think that's great. It stays in Noble County, it helps that business out. None of this solar is going to stay in Noble County. As far as property taxes going down, yeah, they might, because our property values are gonna go down, the assessments are gonna go down. So I agree with what the commissioners have said. The cash escrow account, I cannot figure out for the life of me why you wanna make it different than what the wind is. It's guarantees that those solar panels will be taken care of when it comes time for decommissioning. I have heard from other states that there are solar panels in the fields that are just sitting there. They can't get rid of them. They didn't have a decommission plan, they didn't have a cash escrow account. I'm going off script here. So yeah, I would encourage you to go with the recommendations that the commissioners have given you. You've asked for it, they gave it to you. Let's try to keep Noble County the way Noble County should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, we've heard from interested parties. As I mentioned at the beginning.
Do you mind if I check downstairs just to make sure that's okay?
Mr. Chairman, I apparently signed the wrong sheet to speak. If I could be permitted to speak.
Okay.
I apologize. Clerical deafness. I was, can't really talk. Thank you.
You would wait until our director gets back.
I'm sorry.
But you can have a seat. She's seeking to retrieve a sign-up sheet from downstairs. Okay. Is there anyone else here that signed the wrong sheet?
I think I did as well.
You signed the sheet also, Charlotte?
Yeah, thank God somebody else.
Is there anyone else that signed the wrong sheet? Okay, it appears we have two more persons.
God bless them all.
This is Walter Sword.
My name is Walter Sword. I'm a resident of Auburn, but I'm seeking to represent this area in the legislature, in the 52nd district, which includes about half of the county, and all of DeKalb, and a little bit of Steuben as well. And what I want to do is commend you for the diligence and the time you applied to this very difficult project, and urge that you continue to stand fast for reasonable and appropriate regulations so that this project can move forward. I am concerned that every one of the proposed changes would increase the cost of this project, which at best would mean a higher cost for the electricity that is ultimately generated, and at worst could sabotage the entire project. My philosophy, I'm 75 years old, running for the legislature, I'm not making a career of it, that's for darn sure, is really, the reason my family relocated to Indiana, that was to meet our grandkids. My philosophy of governing is simply a politician worries about the next election, a statesman worries about the next generation. And I think what you have been doing so far falls into the latter category, worrying about the next generation. We need more electricity, we need to do it as cleanly and as cost effectively as possible, and in a way that has the minimum environmental and social impact on the county while raising revenue. And I think it's very clear that solar is far preferable to the alternatives. I don't think people want wind turbines out there en masse. Certainly we can't have fossil fuel, continue to burn fossil fuel because of the impact climate change is having on our agriculture, among many other things. I thank you for your time, I appreciate it, and stand fast. You've done a great job so far, don't be pushed into doing something that I think is ultimately not in the best interest of the people of the county.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sword.
I have a copy of the lease agreement, if you guys would like to have that one.
Thank you. Go ahead and give that to Teresa.
Good evening, my name's Charlie Levin, and I am concerned about the progress of this solar overlay ordinance. And I too want to commend you folks for all the time and effort that it's taken to get us to this point. This what you're doing is a lot like school board. No matter what you do, you're not gonna make anybody happy. And it's a lot the same way, and I really truly appreciate the time and effort that you put in. So I've been farming for more years than I care to admit. I can remember driving a tractor when I was 5 years old. And so it's part of my blood, you might say. And so all my career, I have harvested sunlight, and we process it currently through plants. And then we harvest those plants. And some of the acres that have been entrusted to my care, I intend to put in this solar project. I think it's a good thing, I think it makes sense. One of the things I'm concerned about are the setbacks. And, we currently, if we can drive within 2 feet of a property line and plant our crops, that's what we do. So the business I'm in is not really gonna change. I'm still harvesting sunlight. I don't understand why now I need to be 50 feet away from a property line. So I have a little trouble. I like to try and put things in simple terms. And that may be too simplistic, maybe. But I have a hard time making sense of that. And so the setback of 750 feet makes no sense at all. Even from a resident, it makes no sense at all. The 300 feet that has been established in the current ordinance, that was a compromise. And I think it's a good compromise and should be maintained. So, I commend the work you've done. It's taken a long time. I think, as the other gentleman stated, there's been, a lot of thought put into this and changes made when appropriate. And so when it comes to the setback issue, especially from a property line, but maybe non-participating, what's the sense in that? because we don't do it now. And God forbid that we would think about requiring farmers to be 50 foot away before they plant their crops. Is that what's next? Anyway, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, we've heard from interested parties and those parties wishing to speak. First thing I guess I would ask of Plan Commission members, are there any questions that came out of any of these comments that you wish to direct towards any of the speakers?
I have one.
Okay, Patty?
Rose had mentioned that solar is not reliable energy. I just wanted to know where that, I mean, is there anything that she has that substantiates that?
Okay, do you want her to respond to that?
That would be great.
Rose?
Yes.
Or could you come back forward? This may categorize you as the most special of all the speakers, so take that as a compliment. Patty, would you repeat your question for Rose?
You had stated that solar is not reliable energy, and I just wondered where that information came from.
Where did it come from? From articles that I've read, but did you happen to see a documentary called Red Power?
I did not.
And it talks about the condition that Texas, the state of Texas is in right now. Because they're sitting on oil and natural gas. And yet they're having brownouts and blackouts because they're not allowed to touch that and use it because they're supposed to be depending on solar and on wind. And so they don't have enough electricity, and that's why it's not reliable.
Did that answer your
Okay?
question?
And then weather affects it. The hailstorms. There's the project up at Sturgis that in July of '23, a storm hit that's still sitting there looking like a war zone. It's not been touched and repaired.
Okay, does that answer your question, Patty?
It's not reliable.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Any other questions commission members had of any of the presenters? Okay, if not, I think we're ready to move forward as I described at the beginning of the meeting. And the first thing that I'd like to do is to have us as a plan commission respond to the commissioners' recommended or requested changes. And there are 5 items there. So collectively, what I'd like to do is to have a vote taken to make favorable or unfavorable recommendation on those 5 items that were referred to us by the commissioners. And before we do that, is there any discussion on that or a question as to why we're doing it that way? If not, is there a motion to proceed to the polling of the members?
Question, we're voting on the first 5.
This here,
Those that are on the first page.
and the little bullet points are off to your left if that helps you.
So this will represent a formal response to what was
Just what the
referred to us by the
commissioners-
commissioners.
Just what the commissioner submitted, yes.
So we're gonna be voting
Favorable
of what the
or
commissioners
unfavorable.
recommend.
Correct, of these 5 things together. So it'll be one vote on these 5 things.
We're voting in favorable, unfavorable of what the commissioners recommend.
Correct,
That'll be your vote.
or no recommendation.
Can I clarify? That I think we'll move on to this as a motion, and as a member, you'll vote favorable, unfavorable, and no recommendation.
So at this point, I'd like to have a motion to move on to the polling of the members as to favorable or unfavorable. So this is just a motion to take that next step.
So based on public comment tonight, based on our meetings in the past, I move that we proceed to vote on these proposed changes by the commissioners.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of proceeding to the voting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign? Okay, when you're ready, Teresa, you can go ahead and call the roll, and again, the response to be favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation as it pertains to these 5 things that appear on the first page of the agenda.
Jeff Cunningham,
Unfavorable.
Randy Sexton,
Unfavorable.
Ann Klein,
Unfavorable?
Anita Hess,
Favorable.
Glenn Lemon,
Unfavorable.
Tom Lighty,
Unfavorable.
Patty Gatman,
Unfavorable.
Tom Griffiths,
Unfavorable.
George Bennett.
Unfavorable. So by a vote
8-0.
of 8 to
8-1,
1.
excuse me.
So that was 8 unfavorable, 1 favorable, and 0 no recommendations. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, next, if you would turn to the second page of our agenda. And you'll see that's divided into A, B, and C. We've already voted on B. So what I'd like to consider first is that which is described in lowercase a, Article 3.04, non-participating landowner setbacks. And this is prompted by Ann's motion from last month involving establishing a new category of setback from non-participating parcels of 3 acres or less, which would be a minimum of 350 feet, 450 feet from the property line, 350 feet from the dwelling, or 50 feet from the property line, whichever is the greater of the two. And is there a motion to move forward to polling on that?
So Sarah and I were talking, let me make sure, because we are keeping what we have, but we are adding, we're voting to add an addition to. I wanted to make sure, because
Yes.
I got pulled off.
Make sure everyone understands that.
So moved.
Okay, the motion from Glenn, is there a second?
Second.
So Jeff has the second to move ahead to actually polling on the recommendation. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay, when you're ready, Teresa, you can call the roll again. The response would be favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation.
Randy Sexton,
Favorable.
Ann Klein,
Favorable.
Anita Hess,
Unfavorable.
Glenn Lemon,
Favorable.
Don Lighty,
Favorable.
Patty Gatman,
Favorable.
Tom Griffiths,
Favorable.
Jeff Cunningham,
Favorable.
George Bennett.
Favorable.
That would still be an 8-1 with a favorable recommendation.
Okay. And then our last category falls under lowercase c, changes to Article 11, which is our definitions. And you'll see this is broken into 3 categories, making a definitional change for owner. Secondly, a definitional change for the word surety, or the definition of surety. And then thirdly, entering a definition for wildlife corridor. Any discussion on any of those changes? If not, do we have a motion to move ahead to the polling?
I'll second.
Don has the motion, Anita has the second. All in favor saying aye? Aye. Any opposed, same sign? Okay, so Teresa, when you're ready, again, you're seeking a response of favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation.
And on all 3 definitions, correct?
And this is on all 3 collectively, yes.
Patty Gatman,
Favorable.
Tom Griffiths,
Favorable.
Don Lighty,
Favorable.
Glenn Lemon,
Favorable.
Anita Hess,
Favorable.
Ann Klein,
Favorable.
Randy Sexton,
Favorable.
Jeff Cunningham,
Favorable.
and George Bennett.
Favorable.
That would be a 9-0.
So these do represent our recommendations to the county commissioners. And so we anticipate next that they will act on the recommended changes. Any other items?
No.
to come before us, Teresa?
No, we had 2 meetings in a week.
Okay. Anything else from the commission members? If not, do I have a motion for adjournment? So Randy's got that, is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor, say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned, thank you very much. Mary, thank you for joining.
George, when do the recommendations go to the commissioners?
It's a Tuesday meeting because Monday's a holiday.